Zoids is a science fiction media franchise created by Tomy that feature giant robots called Zoids. A Zoid is essentially a large mechanical animal, with designs being based on animals such as tigers, lions, or various dinosaurs. The franchise started with a model kit-based toy line and includes 4 main anime TV series as well as several video games and manga products. Model kit lines. There have been a number of different Zoids model lines over the years, both in Japan and other countries. Between these lines, over 200 different designs have been released, some several times over. Several companies outside of Takara Tomy have produced Zoids kits. This has led to Zoids being made as die-cast figures, highly detailed posing kits, smaller action figures and even PVC figurines. Mecha, the predecessors to Zoids. Released in 1982, Mecha was technically not a Zoids line, but is counted as such by collectors as it consisted of 3 models that would later be re-released as the first 3 Zoids. The line was not very successful and was quickly dropped by Tomy. Starzetta was the Spanish version of the Mecha line. Since Tomy had no direct marketing power in Spain during the 80s, the models were released under license by a smaller company, but unfortunately the line performed even worse than its Japanese counterpart. The same 3 models were released, but bizarrely they were given new color schemes. Gray parts became silver and the dark blue caps became bright blue. The models were not given names but are listed as Starzetta I, 2 and 3. SZV, SZV and SZV were supposedly planned as a continuation of the series, but their release status is currently unknown. The models are incredibly rare and demand is boosted even further by their unique color schemes. Original American release. Tomy sold the Mecha line in the United States and Europe in late 1982, under the name Zoids. The line was far more successful than Mecha, which led Tomy to reintroduce the line in Japan under the new name. Later, a pair of original Zoids, the Power Zoids Tank and Serpent, were created exclusively for the European and North American markets and were never released in Japan. Other Zoids like the Bigosaur were also released. Radio Shack released the Mammoth Zoid in the US at the same time. While not a part of the release, it is generally counted with them. The original American release is commonly abbreviated as OR by fans and collectors. Original Japanese release in 1983. Following the success of the OR, Tomy reintroduced the Zoids line in Japan. The relaunched Japanese line, now Untitled Zoids, was a success, running from 1983 until 1990. The Zoids line had its own battle story that was told serially on the backs of the model boxes and in catalogs. Initially, the Zoids were divided into 2 distinct factions, the Helic Republic and the Xenobase Empire. In 1989, the Xenobase Empire was replaced with the Gylos Empire. The original Japanese release is commonly abbreviated as OJR. Original European release Zoids were also released in Europe from 1984 to 1987 by Tomy. The models in this release were a mixture of ones directly ported over from the OJR, as well as recolored Zoids, including the rare Ghost Zoids line. Additionally, the Tank and Serpent Power Zoids from the OR were released. Most of the Zoids in the line were renamed. The Zoids in the release were divided into 2 distinct factions, the Blue Zoids and the Red Mutants. The line had its own story, told in the UK Zoids comic. The original European release is commonly abbreviated as OA. Robostrucks were released in the US and Canada by Tomy in 1985-86. All the Zoids in the line were OJR Zoids. However, some versions of the same model retained their original color scheme, whereas other versions of the same model received a distinctive Robostrucks color scheme. Thus, the Robostrucks line had 2 differently colored releases of several models. Based on their color schemes, the Zoids were divided into 2 factions, the heroic Blue Guardians and the evil Red Mutants. However, there was no accompanying story or media. Due to the lack of marketing and the relatively high prices of the models, RoboStrux was rather short-lived. RoboStrux is commonly abbreviated as RS. 1/24 scale Zoids. In 1988, Tomy launched a subline of the OJI featuring larger scale Zoids. The 1/24 line featured Zoids of similar size to existing ones, but scaled for larger pilots. Each kit came with a 3-inch tall action figure of the pilot. Like the regular Zoids line, the Zoids were divided into Helicon Xenobase factions. The 1/24 Zoids were not a success, and were discontinued after a year. Zevla. In 1990, Tomy re-released several of the 1/24 scale Zoids in a new line called Zevla. The Zoids were recolored from the OJR versions, and came with detailed, 3-inch tall action figures of the pilot and crew. The pilot figures were unpainted non-sprues, much like a model kit, and had to be assembled. The crew figures also came with accessories of guns and beam sabers. Zevla featured its own battle story on the boxes, but while it was similar to the Zoid's battle story, it was unrelated to it. Like the 1/24 Zoids, Zevla was a commercial failure and was discontinued. Technozoids. Kenner acquired the rights to release Zoids in North America, releasing the Technozoids line in 1995–1996. The Zoids in the line were all recolors of earlier Zoids released in the OJI, although some were directly imported from the Zoids 2 line. There were no distinct factions for the Zoids, and no backstory was given. The Technozoids line was a failure and was discontinued after 1 year. A number of Zoids were left unreleased at the end of the line. Technozoids is commonly abbreviated as TZ. Zoids 2. Tomy released another line of Zoids in the UK and Europe in 1996. The Zoids 2 line featured very bright color schemes, with all the Zoids having at least some chromed parts. The Zoids also had unique stickers with odd swirling designs. The Zoids 2 line did not feature distinctive factions for the Zoids, but did have a backstory loosely based on the UK Zoid comic, with the Zoids invading Earth and humanity's last hope being to turn the Zoids against each other. Like Technozoids, Zoids 2 was eventually discontinued. Zoids 2 is commonly abbreviated as Z2. New Japanese release. In 1999, Tomy relaunched the Zoids line in Japan, with subsequent releases elsewhere in Asia. Initially, the line consisted of recolored re-releases of older Zoids, but Tomy quickly began producing new Zoids designs. The Zoids were divided into Helicon Gylos factions, with the Xenobase Empire returning later. The OJR battle story was continued on the NJR boxes, with the Zoids anime and manga drawing on alternate versions of the new battle stories events. The line was abruptly discontinued in August 2004. By the end of the line, there were still 33 Zoids from the OJR line that had yet to be re-released. The new Japanese release is unofficially abbreviated as NJR. Customized parts. Along with the relaunch of the Zoids line, Tomy also launched a line known as Customized Parts, or simply CP. The line consisted of additional weapons and equipment that could be added onto Zoids models. The line was a mixture of new parts and reissues of parts originally included in various OJR models. The Customized Parts line was discontinued in 2002. Blocks. In 2002, Tomy introduced a new line of non-motorized Zoids called Blocks, which featured flexible construction. Blocks Zoids can be easily disassembled and combined with each other, as well as with regular Zoids. Toys Dream Project. In 2002, Toys Dream Project began a line of limited Zoids releases. The line consisted of a mixture of new recolors of existing Zoids and re-releases of older versions of some Zoids in their OJR colors, as well as kits paired with uniquely colored customized parts. Zoids Build, Customize, Mobilize. Following the launch of the NJR, Hasbro licensed Zoids for release in North America and Southeast Asia in 2001. Like the NJR, the line was divided into Republic and Empire factions, with the anime providing the backstory. Initially, the Hasbro line consisted of just re-releases of Zoids from the NJR. However, they later began developing their own Zoid designs, as well as co-developing others with Tomy. Additionally, Hasbro had planned to re-release several OJR Zoids that had not been released in the NJR. Although it was initially successful, Hasbro suspended the line in 2004, due to poor sales. The cancellation of the line left a number of new Zoids unreleased, including most of those not yet re-released by Tomy. Much of the leftover stock was later released by Hasbro in Australia and the UK. In Australia and Southeast Asia, these Zoids were released by Tomy. These countries were identical to Hasbro's Zoids, but featured Tomy branding on the box. In the UK, the Zoids boxes featured slightly different logos to both Australia and the US. The UK release featured several Zoids designs and color schemes that were not available in the US. Z-Builders. Any blocks Zoids that were released by Hasbro were sold as part of the line known as Z-Builders. Most of the Z-Builders were re-releases of the NJR blocks line, but the line included several Hasbro-designed Zoids, as well as individual releases of blocks Zoids that did not occur in Japan. The Z-Builders line was suspended alongside the motorized models. Z-Builders was released in Australia and the Pacific featuring Tomy branding instead of Hasbro branding. Fuzzes. In late 2004, Tomy launched a new Zoids line to tie into the Zoids Fuzzes anime that was then showing on Japanese TV. The line was composed entirely of recolors of older blocks and Zoids. Some models were altered slightly, or packaged with additional parts, mainly to allow different Zoids to connect. The line also featured a number of Zoids that were previously only released in North America. The line was abruptly halted in early 2005, with several items unreleased. Fuzzes is commonly abbreviated as FZ. Genesis. In early 2005, another new Zoid line was launched, to tie into the Zoids Genesis anime. The line consists of a mixture of old designs, new designs and older designs with new parts. The line is most notable for the much-anticipated reissues of Han Soldier and Gil Vader. Reactions to the line were mixed. The re-releases of older designs were well received. The new designs, namely the Biozoids which had rubber armor, did not do so well, having been plagued by quality control issues and production errors. Genesis is commonly abbreviated as GZ. An alternate abbreviation, GB, is used for the Biozoids released as part of this line. Neo blocks. Released in May 2006, the Neo blocks are an improvement on the previous blocks line, primarily due to the greater range of posability the blocks and peg connection system has. Two sub-lines have also been released. The first is the Legends series, which features Zoids from previous releases, but redesigned to be the same size as the Neo Blocks Zoids, and modified to use the same connector system. The second are the Custom Blocks SN line appeared to be on hold, with Tomy instead focusing on the Legend Blocks sub-line. With the cancellation of all unreleased Neo Blocks in early 2007, the line was effectively dead. The Neo Blocks is abbreviated as either NBZ or NB. Alternate abbreviations are used for the Legends series and the Custom Blocks. Academy. Zoids Academy, a company from Korea better known for model airplanes and ships, re-released many of the NJR Zoid models, as well as some Zoids from the customized parts, Fuzzes and Genesis series. In most cases, these Academy Zoids have nearly identical packaging to the Japanese predecessors save for the Korean language and a sticker bearing the Academy logo. Though the quality of the Academy Zoids were on par with their Japanese counterparts in the early 2000s, the age and repeated use of some molds, such as Command Wolf and Liger Zero, has caused degradation in the line. The line continues to sell Zoids exclusively in Korean markets. The line advertises high-quality, highly detailed, posable model kits based on designs of existing Zoids. Evo Drive Zoids, miniature Zoids that are either wind-up or motorized. There are only two different molds, the Red Horn and Gordulas, with a total of 4 kits being released. Zoids graphics released in summer 2007 onward. The graphics line are reissues of the OJR model kits released in the 1980s. They feature the model kit in special, windowed packaging along with bonus parts or miniature figures and a booklet with early battle story information. Zoid's 25th rebirth century starting in 2008 as part of the line's 25th anniversary. This new Zoids line contains both re-releases of 80s Zoids and entirely new designs. The backstory is set between the end of the original line and the start of the new Japanese release, covering the Zoidians' efforts to rebuild after the meteor disaster and the conflicts that come with it. Zoid's anime 10th anniversary starting in 2009, as a tribute to both the NJR Zoids release and the Chaotic Century anime series. The anime 10th anniversary is a limited line of correctly colored model kits based on those piloted by characters in the anime series. The line abruptly stopped after just 2 of the kits were released. Zoids Chaotic Century is what this 10th anniversary is based upon. It was only ended in 1999. Revoltech Zoids, a company called Kyoda, released 4 Zoids as Revoltech figures under the Yamaguchi line. 2 Zoid types, the Blade Liger and the Geno Breaker, were produced with the Liger coming in 3 different colors. These Zoids were made to be highly poseable, having more joints than any Revoltech before. These Zoids are smaller than the motorized Zoid models but larger than the Hasbro action figures. Yamato Zoids. Yamato released 2 shield Ligers and a set of beam cannons for the Zoids between 2010 and 2012. These Zoids had die-cast metal parts, as well as fine details and many points of articulation for movable parts. The action models dwarfed their predecessors in size and weight. The first Shield Liger was colored like the Hero Zoid of the Chaotic Century series and included 3 small character figures. The second was painted black and silver and included the beam cannon like the limited NJR model, the Shield Liger DCSJ. It was based on the Yamato Shield Liger was released in the United States and is the only line to be sold in the US. Since Z Builders Modeler's Spirit series for the 30th anniversary of Tomy's main Zoids line, the franchise was treated to a new line of Zoids kits, abbreviated MSS. The Modeler's Spirit series were produced by Tomytec at a 1:144 scale, much smaller than previous lines. These Zoids are not motorized but do feature posing gimmicks similar to mobile suit models, which have used the word gimmick for movable parts longer. Zoids in the MSS line also include a display base. The first MSS Zoids, released in January 2013, were a Shield Liger and Hammer Rock. Zoids Original, another event for the 30th anniversary, was announced on Takara Tomy's main Zoids webpage. Titled Zoids Original, the line features redesigned motorized kits. As with other core Zoids lines, the new series includes a tie-in battle story. A model called the Mirage Fox was the first kit to be released in the new line.